All right, my name's Connor Murray. I've spent the last 7 years in enterprise software sales at 2 market-leading tech companies. I started as an SDR and I worked my way up to where I am now as an enterprise account executive, and cold email has been one of the most effective tools in terms of breaking into accounts, booking high-quality meetings, and building pipeline consistently. But it did not start that way for me. Early on, I followed a lot of the advice a lot of you are probably following from most LinkedIn sales gurus that you see, and I got close to just about a 0% reply rate. And when I did get responses, it was usually telling me to take a hike and take me off their list. So in this video, I want to show you exactly how I do it now, and it's not theory. I'm going to show you real templates and frameworks and examples that are battle tested and will actually work for you at scale. So let's dive into it. All right, so what you're looking at here is the cold email blueprint. This might look like a lot on the screen, but I promise you it's actually very simple, and it's going to serve as the backbone for the entire email system that we're going to implement. And as you can see in the middle, everything about this system revolves around the most important input to booking meetings over email, and that is responses. You can't book meetings if the prospect doesn't respond. This might look similar to what you've seen me talk about cold calling, where instead of responses, I put value statement here. And once you deliver it, there's 3 possible outcomes. Either they agree to meet, resounding no, or give you an objection. Email is the same exact thing, except the key input to entering the funnel is responses. Once a prospect physically responds to one of your emails, it can really be only one of these 3 outcomes. Either it's a yes, it's a resounding no, which is like take me off your list, or they give you some sort of objection or clarifying question or hesitation for your request to meet, in which case we're going to be prepared with what I call an objection handling response bank. But it all starts with the emails and the follow-ups. We can't book meetings if we don't elicit responses. It might sound simple, but a lot of emails I see are not designed to elicit responses. They're designed with optional sounding language about learning more, and that's why your reply rates are probably not as high as you'd like them to be. So the reason most emails don't get replies, there's a few key areas that I look out for. One, this is probably the most important one, is your tone in the structure. Passive language. I'm going to show you how to avoid this. A lot of you probably think you're not using passive language, but I spent 2 years as an SDR manager, and it wasn't until I did that and saw hundreds of different email templates being used by so many different reps that I realized how common this was and how bad of a problem it was. And simply by removing passive language, you can immediately improve your results over email. Another mistake is that it reads like it's automated or it sounds like marketing copy from your website. A lot of times these personalized emails that you see, hey, saw you went to X college or do this or just got promoted. It's so obvious these are just copy paste and automated now, even though you're trying to be personalized, because every rep is doing it. And a lot of these templates, you generally sound more like a customer service representative rather than a sales development representative. So I'm going to show you how to easily fix all this. Another common mistake is the CTA, the call to action. A lot of ones I see are very weak. They're interest-based, worth a chat, is this worth exploring more, want me to send a video, curious to learn more. Things that sound optional or like they're almost doing you a favor if they take you up on a meeting. I want to be more assumptive in my CTAs. I'd rather go down swinging and be a little more assertive as long as that elicits a response than just be too soft and not get a response in the first place. Also on this topic, weak follow-ups and an inconsistent cadence. 70 to 80% of meetings over email get booked from the follow-ups. That doesn't mean the initial email is not important, but the follow-ups are designed to shake them a little bit and say, hey, I am a real person, I'm a professional, I'd like your response to this, whether it's a yes or no, and it gets them to go scroll down and read your first message more carefully. So I'm going to show you the cadence I use, how many emails I send, at what frequency throughout the rest of the video. And then messaging and targeting mistakes. So a lot of people overcomplicate their emails with attachments and links. One, this is not good because it increases your likelihood of going to spam. 2, people are not opening these attachments and links in almost any case, and it slows you down and makes it difficult to scale your email efforts if you're having to add attachments and links. And even if you are automating it, it's usually accompanied by a pretty generic message, and it's pretty obvious to the prospects that there's no way you're attaching custom attachments or links to them personally, that you probably just blasted this out to 100, if not more people. And then poor persona targeting with no clear value for the prospect. It's not enough to just say that you're part of the account team and would like to meet. There's ways to tweak these templates at scale. I'm going to show you through a process I call coiling the spring to make the email template more targeted using a consistent framework that's easy to copy and paste, but you're making it more targeted based on the persona that you're reaching out to. So let me know if this looks familiar to you. This is very representative of what I see in my inbox, what I see people preaching on LinkedIn, and let's just go over it. Example one, this is one of the most common ways. This is the most common type of email I get in my inbox. I think reps think they're being unique and personalized when they send these messages, but you gotta zig when other people zag. Everyone is sending these types of emails now. Maybe there was a period where it worked. I find it hard to believe, but maybe it was. It generally sounds like personalization, observation, problem insight, social proof, soft call to action. But now you're putting yourself in the bucket of every other sales rep when you write messaging like this. So it sounds something like, hey John, noticed blank company is scaling your delivery operations. Are your dispatchers still manually tracking drivers or routes? So that's observation and problem insight. We've been helping companies like link to a relevant customer success story, cut driver admin time by 20% using simple vehicle tracking tools with no rip and replace setup needed. Maybe worth a quick look, worth a chat. Connor. So many emails sound like this, and it doesn't sound professional. You haven't really told them who you are, what team you're a part of, what you're looking to do here. They're just like, in my head, I'd be like, are you in marketing? Are you in sales? Like, I don't even know. I really don't know why you're relevant to me. It kind of just seems like you're blasting this out. And honestly, I think I'm giving them a lot of credit here. This one's not as bad as a lot of the ones I personally see in my email inbox and my LinkedIn inbox, but you're not giving them enough to bite off on here. I don't like using broad statistics in emails too. No one believes that just because you cut some random customers that probably everyone uses as a logo, driver admin time by 20%, you don't know anything about me or my business or my current situation. So I just know you're kind of spraying and praying at this point. It's also a weak call to action. Maybe worth taking a quick look, worth a chat. You're not gonna drive responses with a CTA like that. Example two, this is a little different, but also very representative of what I see out there, and this is what I call passive language. If you take nothing away from this video, you need to scan the emails that you're using for language like this. This is how my brain works when I read them. This is what I did as an STR manager, is I would scan, and anytime a red flag came off in my head as passive language or weak or lowering your value, I would bold it, and simply by taking this stuff out or slightly adjusting it, and I'll show you how, you drive your response rates up pretty dramatically. So it sounds like, hi John, I hope this message finds you well. I'm part of the ABC team that supports all things pertaining to yada, yada, yada. We work with many organizations on process transformation, and I wanted to reach out to hopefully set up a time to see how we can potentially act as a resource. I would love to set up a time next week, yada, 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 to get a better understanding of your current applications and how we can be assistance to you and your team. Warmest regards, Connor. Does this sound like if I was busy in the middle of my workday, does this sound like I need to respond to this? No. And these types of emails don't get response rates because you're putting too many caveats. I would love to. Even something like that and changing it to I'm looking to set up some time will make a big difference. Get a better understanding. That's just weak and lowering your value. You're supposed to understand their role. They don't want to teach you about their role. Be of assistance, again, sounds weak. Potentially act as a resource. Hopefully set up a time, or just like, I hope you're doing well, things like that. People think they're being polite, but it's just a blank line you can just take out. You want to be very concise. Every word and every sentence should be moving the email forward. Stuff like this, you just want to eliminate because it's killing your response rates. So the proven cold email framework, and if you're using any of that stuff, that's what I did for about the first 6 months as an SDR, and I really didn't emphasize email because I wasn't booking any meetings over it. I was following the techniques that were taught to me, not getting results, and I'm like, I'm spending all this time emailing. Why don't I just rip dials because I seem to be getting all my results there? And it wasn't till I flipped my strategy that email went from being basically a zero for me to being one of my main pipeline generators that I could rely on consistently. So the cold email framework is designed with the following principles in mind. It has a who, why, what structure. Every email clearly states and answers 3 questions: who you are, why you're reaching out to them, and what you want. And they're generally 3 bodies of paragraph as well, one for each, one for the who, one for the why, and one for the what. The brain, it's proven, likes 3s in written word. It has assumptive framing. So we're not using passive language like the previous one or interest-based call to actions. I'm telling them I'm expecting this meeting to happen, and they can tell me no, but I'd rather go down swinging. So the emails are written with the expectation that this meeting makes sense, not questioning or getting their feedback on whether it does. This is very contrary to what you commonly see taught out there, but I promise you, just implement this and watch the response rates increase. The proof is in the numbers. And then I'm focused on selling the meeting, not the product. I'm not selling my case studies and the results that we've driven for other customers. I'm focused on selling the meeting and positioning myself as a valuable resource to them moving forward in key business areas they likely care about. And then I take a persona-first targeting strategy. So I want to adapt each email, even though they all look similar and have a similar structure and framework. I want to adapt particularly the why piece to be more relevant to the specific priorities and challenges of that particular recipient's role based on their job title, the industry they work in, market segment, geography, whatever your value prop is. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Some other goals, it's built to scale with quality, high quality at scale. It will work across hundreds of leads. Like one template should fit one ICP, and you should be able to send it to just about anyone who fits that ICP, like a VP of finance that works in life science. You come up with a template targeted for VPs of finance in life science, and you should be able to send it to all of them and have it be a good sounding email just by changing their name and the name of their company. Don't let anyone tell you that quantity doesn't matter, particularly if you're an SDR or an AE that has some sort of KPI to set, call it 20 meetings a month, 30 meetings a month. You better believe you have to send a high volume of emails if you want email to support you in booking that many meetings per month. Also, follow-ups are mandatory, not optional. So many people do follow-ups wrong. Again, these will generate about 70 to 80% of your meetings. Most people wait too long to follow up, and they actually follow up too many times. So I'm going to show you what I do instead. It should be simple to implement too. I see these cadences that it's like call day 1, email day 2, voicemail day 3, LinkedIn request day 4, then LinkedIn message day 5, follow-up email day 6. And I'm like, how are you supposed to scale that over 100 different prospects or leads every single week? It needs to be simple. For your high volume outreach, the framework needs to be simple. So I use an easy A, B every other day cadence. I'm literally going to show you what this looks like on the calendar, and then repeatable templates to stay consistent at scale. And then I want to hit leads. This is related to follow-ups. Hit leads decisively and then move on quicker than a lot of people are commonly trained to do so. I want short and focused sequences designed to match the assumptive nature of the email. So hit them hard, move on, and then you can circle back on lists a lot quicker than you think. You actually only need to wait about 6 to 8 weeks. You can even do it sooner if you want. But now I want to show you an example of a very basic template and what this can look like. So this is a very broad VP of finance. If I was at a company, I made it up, called Capital Site. We sell financial management software, and I'm targeting VPs of finance. This is what that 3-body who, why, what structure can look like. So, hi Blank, my name's Connor Murray, and I'm part of the Capital Site Financial Applications team responsible for supporting XYZ company. Given your role, I'm looking to introduce our team and align with your priorities going forward. We work with finance teams still relying on, and then what I put here, colored in orange, is what I'm changing about the template depending on what the title or the persona is. If this was a VP of HR, then I would be naming priorities and outcomes that VPs of HR care about if that was something my solution supported. But in this case, I say heavy manual reporting, fragmented spreadsheets, and time-consuming reconciliation processes. Our focus is on automating financial data consolidation, improving in providing actual real-time visibility into key metrics, giving finance teams the ability to close a lot faster and deliver far more reliable reporting. Now, instead of a interest-based or weak call to action, I'm looking to set some time for an introduction, as my team will be your main point of contact here for any priorities you have in these areas going forward. What does your availability look like the week of the 21st? Looking forward to it, not warmest regards. Looking forward to it, Connor. So the way the email is written is it's written with an assumptive tone. I'm expecting this meeting to happen, not asking if they're interested. and I could probably have a list of 100 VPs of finance in my territory or something, all on a list. And just by changing their name and the name of their company, I could send this email and it's going to be a relevant targeted message for that persona. Rather than just saying some more broad message about Capital Site, I did make it targeted specifically to priorities that a VP of finance would care about. And you can go way deeper than this, and you should. I'm just showing you the base framework here. So I'll show you a different example of what this can look like now. Let's say you're selling to a fleet manager. Here's how, again, it's not the exact words, it's more the structure of who, why, what, the 3 bodies of paragraph. It's generally about 5 to 6 sentences. In this one, I don't say anything about being responsible for supporting them, although even if they're not a current customer, you can say you're responsible for supporting them, especially if you have a traditional territory and they're one of your accounts. If they need something from your company, or in the general realm of the areas or priorities that you support, you are their point of contact at your company and therefore support them. But a lot of people don't like to use that language, so here's another example. My name's Connor Murray and I'm part of the construction team. Now we're making it a little bit industry specific. Maybe it's fleet managers that work in construction. I'm part of the construction team at Fleet Core Solutions. We work with fleet operating teams in the construction space to improve visibility and cut down on manual admin work. Our focus is on priorities related to vehicle tracking, fleet visibility, and driver performance management, and we work with fleet management teams to reduce driver admin time, improve route efficiency, and automate reporting on driver and vehicle activity through our straightforward tracking system and up-to-date fleet information. I'm looking to set some time for an introduction, yada, yada, yada. So you can see how it's a very similar structure. I followed the same general format as the last one, but now I could have a list of 100, 200 fleet managers, and by replacing what I did in orange, this will hopefully be a good targeted template for all of them just by changing their name in this case. So there's lots of different variations and ways you can take this, but I hope you're starting to put 2 and 2 together in your head, that rather than creating these lists and figuring out who am I going to target today and having these jumbled lists of different personas or even a bunch of different job titles at the same account, this is what I mean by persona-based targeting. You can create lists of people for all of the top job titles you go after, combinations of job title and industry, create associated templates for each of those lists, and now you have things ready to go that you can scale. You could have a list of 100 fleet managers, and let's just say you were using this template. I'm sure a lot of you, if you work in this space, you'll make it more targeted, but if we're using this, you could take this template, have 100 fleet managers, and really just copy, paste, change the name, and send it out, and you can get out 100 emails in 60 to 90 minutes if you're really dialed in. This is what I mean by high quality at scale. You have to do the upfront work to make the lists and really think about the templates. You can't skimp out on this. You can't have a lazy template. It's not, then this whole thing doesn't work. But if you do it right, it helps you in terms of sending high quality emails out at a higher volume. But now I want to go into how to take this to the next level. And this is something I don't think I've even covered on my channel before, but I want to talk about persona levels. Lots of people think about this differently. I hear some people think about it as above the line or below the line and 2 different levels, which is fine. But I think it's smart to tailor your messaging depending on the type of persona you're reaching out to. So I like to think of it in 3 levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 are essentially end users or individual contributors. Most of us watching this video probably fall into this category, like SDRs, AEs. In other spaces, it could be fleet dispatchers or recruiters. Basically, it's the end users doing the day-to-day work, and usually they're focused on goals related to, like us, saving time, simplifying tasks, reducing friction. Like if you're an SDR and AE, what we care about on a day-to-day, like our pain points are, oh, it's taking me too long to get my leads into a list, or my contact information I'm getting is super inaccurate. Yes, we do care about the operational and executive level priorities, like all things equal, we want our organization to be doing better, but that's not really what we're metriced on. We're metriced on day-to-day, ground floor performance. So we want to make our messaging and the priorities that we name and the challenges and the outcomes targeted to end users. Level 2 is more team leads, managers, decision influencers. They're more at the operations level. They generally manage the end users. So this, for just sticking with the SDR example, would be like a director of business development. they do care about the manual processes, all things equal. They want things to be easier for us and for us to be more efficient, but they're really focused on the team KPIs, like how's the org in terms of pipeline generation compared to last year? Is it growing? What percentage of these opportunities are converting to actual closed deals, things like that. So their goals are usually around improving efficiency for their teams, processes, and performance. And here's some examples like sales managers or directors, fleet ops managers, directors of IT. And then level 3 are executives and budget holders. So people who actually own the budgets and the strategic direction of the company. And what they care about are things like ROI, risk reduction in the business, alignment with overall business goals and objectives. So most cases, that's usually VP or above, C-suite, or if you ever see a department head. And sometimes the line's blurred between who falls into what, and you don't need to overthink it, but you can make 3 variations of each template, one targeted to level 1, one targeted to level 2, and one targeted to level 3 if you really want to take this framework to the next level. So now I want to show you what that can look like using the same fleet manager or fleet operations example I was just showing you earlier. So I did a level 1 template, a level 2 template, so a fleet dispatcher, a fleet ops manager, and a chief operations officer, and how you can take this same framework, but I just replaced what I put in the orange in each one to make it more targeted to what that specific level persona cares about. So I won't read them all again, but in this case, I said we focus on areas like live vehicle tracking and automated activity logging in order to help teams save hours on paperwork, reduce back and forth with drivers, and get clear visibility into who's where and when. In the fleet ops manager one, I said reduce driver admin time. It's more KPI focused and increase visibility across teams by automating reporting tied to fleet and driver activity. And then for the COO one, I talked about increasing accountability across field teams, surface performance insights that drive better decisions, and create more scalable oversight across regions. So little tweaks like this can be the difference when it comes to email of a 1 to 2% in reply rate. And what I mean by that is it can go from getting a 10% reply rate if you just sent the general template to a 12% reply rate by making it more targeted for their specific level persona. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a 20% increase going from 10% to 12%. And when you're doing this at scale, which email is a scale game, that makes a huge difference. Little tiny improvements make big differences at scale. So that's why I do obsess over these little details. It's important to get it right, because conversely, if you're missing out on this stuff or you have lazy passive language, then you're just click and send and wasting your time for no reason. So on that note about scaling without losing quality, because this is the trap a lot of people fall into. They start to scale this up, but then they make little mistakes or they cut corners, and it just ends up being a waste of time and actually getting them worse results than probably where they started. So what's important if you want to scale your outreach, and I recommend getting to, for most people, especially if you're an SDR that's not in an enterprise territory, but you have a lot of accounts and a lot of prospects you could be reaching out to, and your main KPI is setting meetings, you need to be getting to about that 100 email per day number. And that includes follow-ups, and it can actually be a lot higher than this, but a lot of reps are sending out, I see it, it's like 20 emails per day, 10 emails per day. There's 2 buckets. You want to have your accounts you set aside that are your strategic A accounts that you do slow down a bit and you don't just use this broad general scalable template, but you got to have this other bucket, because this can just generate meetings on autopilot if you get the messaging right and you coil the spring, everything I'm going to talk about in a second. It can get you meetings with people you otherwise just wouldn't have reached out to or wouldn't have gotten your message to. And some of those meetings end up being the best meetings that you get the entire fiscal year. So in order to do this, you got to coil the spring. So I've showed you a bunch of examples. You need to build your lists and build your templates in advance. Build your lists of your top ICPs. Start with your top departments, your job titles, your industries, and then you can work your way down and get more niche. And then you want to, build all of these out and then create templates start with the base email framework. Because for a lot of you, it's going to be a massive improvement than some of those examples I was showing at the beginning of the video where it's like personalization, observation. You're gonna see this is gonna be a big improvement. It's gonna start getting more responses, and you're gonna see how you can optimize it going forward. If you wanna take it a step further, once you have the base templates and the lists in place for your top ICPs, make level 1, level 2, and level 3 templates, but you don't need to start there. But here's what I'm talking about in terms of, here's two side-by-side examples of, here's that same VP of Finance template I showed earlier, but let's say one of your common industries that your company plays best in is retail, and you can filter leads in your territory, you add a list of VPs of Finance that all work at organizations in the retail industry. Here's how you can take the general template and just put in a little extra effort to coil the spring. And I changed what was in orange to make it slightly more, you're not overdoing it, but you're just making it slightly more targeted to retail. So rather than just heavy manual reporting, fragmented spreadsheets, and time-consuming reconciliation processes, I say manual month-end consolidation across multiple store systems, disconnected inventory and POS, point of sale data, and reactive margin analysis. Our focus is on automating multi-source financial reporting, delivering real-time visibility into store and regional performance, and helping finance leaders close faster with more accurate and audit-ready data. So what you're doing here is, like, these people, when they get these emails, most of them are not reading it word for word, logically, super focused. They're more scanning it, and we're just increasing the odds slightly that as they're scanning it, they're like, oh, this person probably is reaching out to me directly and not just blasting this. Because here, look, this will still book meetings if you send this out enough times, but here we're just increasing it slightly when they see multiple store systems, disconnected inventory and POS data. What we want is for them in their head to just scan something and be like, oh, that is important to me, or oh, that is something that comes up in my internal meetings with my team or my boss, whoever it is, or this is an objective for us. And once we get that, then they read your email more closely. And because they do that, it increases the odds that they reply, and therefore odds that we book a meeting. So you don't need to overdo it, but just by peppering in retail specific finance priorities as opposed to general finance priorities, we improve our email template by a lot. And so once we've done all of the heavy lifting, which I used to just take a few days at the start of every quarter to build all my lists, build my templates, review them all. It kind of sucked when you're doing it, but it saves you so much time over the long run. But let's say you've done all of that. Now it becomes about how can we implement this in a consistent and scalable way. So you need to have a built-in structure so that you know every day when you sit down at 8 a.m., whenever your day starts, you have a clear plan and you know what you're doing. You're not coming up with things to do and creating all this friction for yourself. The other important piece of this is for benchmarking. When you are following a consistent process, it gives your results more context and more consistent metrics to measure progress on. It also gamifies the role. When you really start to implement this, it turns outreach into a game. The SDR job for me in particular, and just outreach and pipeline generation in general, didn't feel like a game until I implemented this specific email cadence I'm going to show you in a second. And you kind of know when you're on pace or when you've done enough to likely hit your targets. There's no guarantees. It's always ebbs and flows. But in general, you can know when you've done enough on a week by week or month by month basis. So in order to do this, you got to keep it simple in your head. Just the formula is quality messaging, like some of the ones I've covered where we make it more retail specific in that example, plus volume, plus doing this, following a consistent process with follow-ups equals success. It's nothing more than that. It's not just quality, it's not just volume, and it's not just consistency. You need these three key pieces are the variables to booking meetings consistently over email. And the way I do this is through what I call the A-B cadence, the every other day email cadence, every other day touch points for consistency, that should say consistency at scale. So essentially the way to do this is you pick two different groups of leads for the week, A and B, and Monday you email group A, Tuesday you email group B, Wednesday you send the first follow-up to group A, Thursday you send the first follow-up to group B, Friday follow-up 2 to A, Monday. So it's every other business day you're sending the next email in the cadence. So rather than just bullet pointing this out, I'm actually going to show you what this looks like on the calendar because I think it'll help you in terms of visually picturing how you're going to do this. All right, so here is what the calendar will look like following this cadence in its simplest form. So I'm an email guy in the morning. I like to get these emails out in the morning. It's also the best time of day for reply rates. People generally haven't gotten their day started. They're not in meetings yet. I'll take an hour and a half. I'll pick a list of leads, call it VPs of finance in retail. That'll be my group A. And it doesn't all have to be one title and one persona. It can be a few different lists and you can use a few different templates. What's just important is that every email you send in this time block is considered group A. And then in the darker green, and then you're done. Then you do whatever else you got to do the rest of the day. You can use the time for more strategic prospecting, meetings you have, internal stuff, etc. But in terms of this process, you're done. On Tuesday morning, you're going to pick a different list of leads, call it Group B, and you're going to send the associated templates to all of them 8 to 9:30, and now you're done. Wednesday morning, when you wake up, and this is if you're not automating any of this, you wake up, you're going to scroll down to your sent box, go to the first email you sent on Monday. You should see a list of, let's call it 100 emails that you sent to VPs of finance and retail, and you're going to take follow-up 1, and I'm going to show you the follow-ups I use in a second, and send it copy paste to all 100 or however many VPs of finance in retail that you emailed on Monday, and then you're done. Thursday morning, you're going to send the same exact follow-up, except scroll down to Tuesday morning and send them all to list B. Now, here's a key thing to remember. If you get replies, if you start to get replies from some of these follow-ups, as soon as you get a reply, you need to go down to the email that you sent them on Monday or Tuesday or whatever the last email you sent them was, and delete that message so that when you start the follow-up to Cadence, you don't accidentally email them again. I've had that happen where they're like, yeah, I'm free to meet on Tuesday. Great. I booked the meeting, and then I send them a follow-up to on Friday, like, hey, can you please give me your thoughts on this? And they're like, what do you mean? So small detail, I just want to make you all aware of that, but it's every other day. So light green, dark green, light green, dark green. Then when you get to the next week, here's where you can start to implement a little nuance. So you follow up 2 to group B, and then follow up 3 to A, follow up 3 to B. And then you're done. They've gotten 4 emails from you in about a 7 to 10 day span. They know you're there at that point. That's when I move on. I start a fresh list, and that's exactly what we're going to do on Monday and Tuesday. We send our follow-ups to group B in the morning, whatever that activity was for this group of leads, but then we're also simultaneously going to start a new group. And so when you get really good at this, I don't recommend you start here, but when you get comfortable with the process, here's where you can start to work multiple lists at the same time. And this is where, if you're doing this right, you're sending out 100 plus emails per day, every day. Like, you are going to start to get a lot of replies. You're also going to look great in the eyes of your management. You look like you have your process down. You're probably going to be the #1 activity leader in your group, but you can start to run 2 different groups or cadences at the same time. And you'll wake up on Tuesday to responses from group B from Monday. Same thing with Wednesday. You'll just start to get more replies the more consistent you are with this. But the key is consistency. You can't just do this Monday, skip Tuesday, Wednesday, and then try and pick it up again on Thursday. What I've found, and I'm going to talk about this more in a second, is that you have to follow up within 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, any longer than that, and the reply rates go down pretty dramatically. And by the way, if you want more hands-on guidance actually implementing this and crafting the templates, tweaking them for your ICPs, walking through this process and weekly live coaching with me, you can check out the links in the pinned comment and description below for Cold Email Engine. As of now, when I'm recording this, it's going to be May 27th. It goes live on May 30th, so if you're watching it before then, I'll update the links. But I hope to see you all in there and more on that in future videos. But let's get back into the follow-up part of this cadence. All right, so follow-ups is just one of those areas I see most reps just getting completely wrong. They devalue themselves. They write these emails, 1, that aren't scalable follow-ups, 2, that totally devalue yourself. And just remember, our goal here is to elicit a response. We sent them a valuable message in the first place. I want to be directing their attention back to that email, not writing a new email with a new case study and new links and success stories, etc. So the reason we follow up is the follow-ups reinforce the value of our initial outreach, and they create an expectation and align with that expectation and tone of our initial email that the meeting is going to happen, that we're expecting this to happen. And it also comes across that we're a real person and not an automated system that's personally reaching out to them with a specific purpose in mind. I get these emails all the time where I get an email on Monday, their next follow-up comes to me on the next Monday, and then the next Monday after that, it's like this once a week cadence. And it's so obvious I'm on a cadence, and I'm like, all right, if I don't respond for a few more Mondays, they'll probably just go away. So there's lots of reasons why prospects, most don't respond to the initial email. A lot of times they're busy, they're distracted, they're going into a meeting, they see it and maybe they're like, I actually will respond to that, but then they get pulled away from it and forget to go back, forget to respond. They're waiting for internal approval. You can see it a lot if you're able to track opens. You can see people who forward it because they're probably emailing their boss like, hey, do you want to join this, or should I be like taking this meeting? And if you don't follow up, it kind of just gets lost. You got to give them that extra push. Or they just aren't yet convinced, they're skeptical because their inboxes are always so flooded that you're actually a real person reaching out to them. So my approach to following up is to condense the timeline, hit them hard, and then move on. So it's one email and then 3 pointed follow-ups that are very concise, telling them essentially to give me a response to my first email in about a 7 to 10 day span. And then I rinse and repeat. I move on to fresh lists after those 4 emails. I don't drag out a 15 touch point cadence because that time spent, the reply rates after 4 emails drop dramatically, and all of that time you're spending is better off just going on to a new list, and then you can recircle back and retarget the same list a lot more frequently than you think. I say that every 6 to 8 weeks is fine. I learned this as an SDR because I ran out of personas and contacts to reach out to by about month 3 or 4. And in my head, I'm like, I'm screwed. I'm not getting a new territory. I'm not getting new accounts. I think my emails are pretty good. I don't know what I would change about them. So I'm just going to run it back and send the same cadence to all of them. And I ended up doing that for each contact in my territory about 6 times per contact, like initial email and 3 follow-ups, 6 times each throughout the year. And there were people responding the 4th time around, the 5th time around, 6th time. There was no drop off. And a lot of times it's just a timing thing. So rather than dragging on these long, complex cadences, hit them hard, rinse and repeat, move on. Every 6 to 8 weeks is fine. And like I said earlier, 70 to 80% of meetings booked will come from follow-ups, not from the first message. So here's a couple follow-up examples. I have 3 here. This is generally how I frame them. There's lots of variations to them. But follow-up 1 comes within 48 hours, and it's more of a softer follow-up, giving them the benefit of the doubt. But you're still asking, making it clear you want a response to your initial email. So it can sound like, hey blank, just confirming you caught my previous note. Do either of those dates, if you had proposed dates in the first email, do either of those dates work for you? Sometimes I add something like, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't make the resources I have available to you. It kind of guilts them a little bit, but you don't have to use that line. Thanks, Connor. Now follow-up 2 is where it gets a little spicy, and I show what I call professional dissatisfaction. Keyword is professional. We are not being disrespectful, but we're being a lot more direct because now we gave them the benefit of the doubt. Now, because what this signals is that we are a real person and we think this is important that we either set this meeting up or get a response to what we said. So you can just say, please give me your thoughts on this. You can say, please give me your thoughts on this when you have a moment. And that's it. Like, that's all you have to say. I get more responses from this than any other email that I send because they see it in the subject preview and they're like, wait, what? And their fight or flight mode kicks in. They see you already followed up once, and now they go down and they read your first email a lot more carefully. And the response rates from this one, and again, that's the key input, responses are very high compared to other emails. And then follow-up 3, I'm always tweaking this one. Right now, the best one I've found is an assumptive breakup. Again, lots of variations, but you kind of, again, you're almost going for a guilt play here. Let me know if it makes sense to revisit this conversation at a later date. Happy to connect in August, like 2 months out, if that's a better time. Just trying to plan the next couple weeks and would like to close the loop. Either way, thanks, Connor. But most responses come by fault. Like if you don't get them on follow-up 2, you get some replies with an assumptive breakup or just a 3rd follow-up in general. After follow-up 3, you're kind of just devaluing yourself and you're better off moving on. So I do initial email and 3 emails like this every other day. And in about 7 to 8 days, they're getting 4 emails from you. Ideally, on the off days, you're also calling them. I won't get into that in this video, but they know you're there at that point. You've done your job. So everything we've covered in this video has revolved around this framework. Emails, how can we make them better, more targeted, taking a persona-specific approach, making it more likely they see value and potentially setting up time? How can we implement a simple but scalable follow-up cadence to maximize our chances of getting a response? All of this has been centered around getting as many responses from high-value personas as possible, because once we get a response, now they've entered the funnel and there's only 3 possible outcomes. Either they agree to a meeting, in which case book it, they give you a resounding no, like take me off your list, or they give you an objection. But that's the key to the assumptive nature of the emails, is it elicits objections that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten if your language was like, worth a chat, or I'd love to set up some time if possible. They just would have not responded. Now we elicit one of these common objections, and now we can be prepared with what I call an objection response bank on how to respond to them. So my framework for handling objections is to acknowledge their concern and just tell them it makes sense to meet anyway. Essentially double down on the meeting request and maintain the assumptive tone. So sell the meeting, don't debate or handle their objection. So I'll show you what I mean by this, but the key thought process to this is if I can't position a 15 to 20 minute introductory meeting to them as valuable in areas they care about, I'm not going to handle my way to a yes by linking to some case study or trying to calculate some ROI. Really with the objection, they're just trying to see if you're serious. Like most of the time, they're just trying to push you away. And if they continue to push back, that is when, if I reply and then they push back again, well, now they're engaged and now I can give them a more personalized response. But this is more in line. Here are some examples of how you can adapt this framework to some of the most common objections. Like, it doesn't make sense for us to meet, we're already an XYZ customer. Rather than attaching some case study about how you helped blank company in their industry move over to your solution off this one and save them 20% in the process, I would say something like, hey John, thank you for the insight. The idea is just for us to get introduced and be a resource and point of contact here at Capital Site. We work with a lot of XYZ customers, so if there's ever a fit, we can move forward, but it would at least make sense to get aligned for the year. A brief 15-minute call would be greatly appreciated. Do either of those days work for you? Connor, different objection. We don't have the budget for this right now. Thanks for sharing, that definitely makes sense. So acknowledge their concern, tell them why it makes sense to meet anyway. It's not about, this convo is not about budget or any immediate purchasing decisions. It's more about getting introduced and making sure you have a point of contact when the timing is right. A brief 15-minute call would be appreciated, yada, yada, yada. We're too busy, please reach out closer to the end of the year. Thank you for the insight. Again, acknowledge it, tell them it makes sense to meet anyway. Totally understand you're busy, and that's why I'm looking to briefly introduce our team now, even if there's no immediate fit. It makes sense to be aligned early. Do you have 15 minutes on Friday? I also like this line, a brief 15-minute call would be greatly appreciated. You want to make it sound like it's your job to meet with them, because it is. If these are your accounts and you support them, it's your job to meet with them. And I promise you, even though it might not logically make total sense, positioning an introductory call using this framework, I have seen this repeatedly get better results over email. It's not like you win every time, but again, we're trying to make something out of nothing here. If we can book an extra 10 to 20% of people who respond by using this framework, then that's going to make a massive difference at scale. So I literally keep a bank of responses like this for my most common objections, and then you can use it as a starting point rather than having to come up with a new response from scratch every single time you get an objection. And you can add more context to it depending on what you know about the particular customer or the particular objection they gave you. But this is a really good starting point. And it's going to make it a lot easier for prospects to agree to something like this than to take a meeting because they think they might actually replace their financial management system because you attach some case study. So hope you guys got some value out of this one. I tried to cover the most important actionable techniques to get you better results over email. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe for more. Again, there's links in the pinned comment and description below if this is May 30th or after when you're watching for Cold Email Engine. I hope to see you all in there, but I will see you all on the next one.